So I didn't make it to Bridgeport, and so Alexis was salty. That's how would you use that in a sentence? Unfortunately not, but anyway. So yeah, saltiness is not something we typically think of in a very positive way about people, but that's where I come in and explain the biblical things. So salt in biblical times, and still today, was used as a preservative to keep food good for a while. It was used, of course, for flavoring. It enhances flavor, so that's why it's used in literally everything that you cook. And it was a way of cleansing and purifying, so in kind of a medicinal sort of way. And so salt has a positive connotation here. So when Jesus says, "You are the salt of the earth," it's not like he's saying, but it's actually a positive thing. You have flavor. You are this pure thing that is in the world. The other thing that he calls the disciples, that he calls us, would be light. You are the light of the world, and a city on a hilltop cannot be hidden. I don't have to explain too much about light. Light today is still considered positive for the most part, right? Lighthouse, or the dark side of the force, which is countered by the light side of the force, right? Which is also the more humorous side of the force, as things will turn out. Right, keeping it light, that's what it is. And so where the salt and the light is used to brighten things up, to make things known, right? Which as disciples, that's kind of what we are supposed to do. So what is this whole conversation about losing saltiness, right? Or being hidden under a bushel basket, or whatever the case may be. Right? If salt loses its saltiness, how will it become salty again? Well, the answer is, of course, you can't. Not really how it works. At least not at this time. And if a light is quenched under a basket, there's really no use for the light at all, right? I mean, if you turn on your lamp in your bedroom and then throw a blanket over it, it really kind of defeats the purpose of what you're after. Unless you're after some kind of ambiance, in which case, I don't know, that's pretty low budget. But there's really something to this about starting out with a lot of flavor and a lot of light and a lot of connection with God, a lot of connection with beauty and love and compassion. And then stepping out into the world, and it doesn't take long before the world's negativity, the world isn't all negative, but there's quite a lot of negativity out there, before that starts hitting. Right? Maybe, while you're here, you feel really connected and you feel like, things are good and you're kind of on the right track. And then as soon as you get out in the world and there's Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, you hit a lot of that negativity. You go to school and you're surrounded by people who perhaps only see life in kind of a negative light. For some of us who go to work, we know what it's like to work with people like that. And that can start to wear down that connection if it's not kept with God. And that's what is meant by losing one's saltiness, losing one's light, the light being quenched. Is that when encountering the negativity of the world and all the distractions of the world, we start focusing on things other than our relationship with God and having a godly relationship with other people. And for an example of this, how many of you guys know about the bus in Oklahoma where those young men were chanting something they really shouldn't have been? Anybody know that story? No. Right, they're students at OU, and they were part of SAE, which is a fraternity. And after an event, they got on the bus and they started chanting this apparently historical chant, which was, "There will never be an N-word in SAE." Oh. And it was kind of to that tune of, "There'll never be an N-word in SAE. You can hang them from a tree, but they'll never sign with me. There will never be an N-word at SAE." Wow. Now, before you jump on, now I know that the inclination, because it's the same one I have, right? Which is, what a bunch of, and then all the all the world's negativity starts coming from you, right? That's kind of how that works. Negativity brings out the same response. But before you go off too soon, what you need to realize is 70% of those guys were from North Texas.
Okay.
And were raised United Methodist.
Oh.
They were raised in the same kind of churches that are like the one that you're in right now. Our hallmark feature being love, right? And compassion and being kind and all of that sort of stuff. They were raised with that. But then they went to a conference that was nationwide for their fraternity, and they learned that chant. And they didn't see a problem with that. And so they chanted it, they got caught on video, and most of them have lost any chance. They got kicked out of school, first and foremost, and they lost any chance of employment immediately, and all. I mean, they are going to be known for this, especially the young men that were implicated, that were identified in the video doing it. And like I said, before you jump onto them, realize they sat in seats similar to the ones that you were in. They were in classes similar to the ones that you were in. They were in churches similar to the ones that you were a part of. But they lost their saltiness. They lost that light. They quenched it just for a moment, and it's going to cost them their futures more likely than not. And this isn't a threat. I'm not using this to say that if you go out and do this, that's what's going to happen. But what I'm saying is it's easier than you might think to get out into the world and all of a sudden lose your Christianity and cease to be the light, but instead start participating in whatever's going on. And at that point, that light gets covered up, that saltiness gets torn away. It's easier than you think, and those guys aren't bad guys. Churches refuse to meet with this group in Oklahoma until somebody from my school, SMU, she works in communications, and she went up and talked to these guys, and that's where she learned that they never learned anything in church that would make them think that that was wrong. That's a problem, and that's a story for another day. But they're still good guys, but they lost that Christian identity. They didn't know what it meant to be a Christian in the world. And so I'm telling you right now, to be a Christian in the world means just that. It's not partaking of the religious stuff here, right? Singing the songs, saying we believe, being kind to everybody while we're in the building, and then going out to the world and doing whatever you have to do. That's not the way. The way of the Christian person is to go out into the world, and when we encounter that negativity, when we encounter all those distractions and those things that are pulling us away from God, away from each other, we, instead of being transformed by our circumstances, we transform our circumstances. We flavor the world with our presence. We purify it by being a certain way, by behaving in a Christian way. And we shed light on who God is through who we are being. And instead of covering it up, we let that light shine. And you guys are gifted with that light here and now. That light is offered to you, that flavor and that saltiness that is offered to you. And you, as you are right now, no matter what age you are, guy, gal, whatever point in life you're in, you are empowered by God's Spirit and invited to go out into the world and to show God's love through what you do and what you refuse to do. To go out and witness to that love, to go out and be fully Christian at all times. And you don't have to be afraid of the consequences of that negativity, because we understand in our faith that those things do not have the final say, but God does. The God who we are showing to the world. And so I want to encourage you guys, stay salty, and let the light shine. Let's pray.